Dawn crawled quietly over Pine Ridge, frosting the pines with saffron light and turning every scrap of nylon on the launch field into stained glass. The annual hot air balloon showcase had always been that sort of gentle sorcery, a morning when the town's river valley forgot it was ordinary and became a bowl full of slow-rising suns. Telephoto lenses clacked. Children in grass-stained jeans raced along the boundary rope, yelling out the colours they liked best. And at the north end of the field, meteorologist Claire Hale stood on a crate in front of the local news camera, microphone branded with KPRX7. Winds are practically purring, she told 40,000 viewers. 3 knots from the southeast, low humidity, perfect vertical mix. Couldn't have ordered better conditions for lift. She meant it. Her pre-dawn sounding balloon showed the atmosphere behaving like a textbook example. No shear, no inversion, no surprises. A soft event for the 10th annual Pine Ridge Festival and a soft segment for the 6:30 broadcast. Claire liked both. She'd chosen meteorology over storm chasing because she preferred reliable to dramatic. Downfield, Edgar Doyle, founder of the showcase, mayor once upon a time, and the town's walking handshake, was securing the mouth of his signature balloon, Aurora. Its envelope, a swirl of indigo and tangerine, had become the unofficial logo of the festival. Doyle's white straw hat bobbed as he brandished a grin in Claire's direction. She smiled back, gave him a thumbs up, and finished her piece on air. 5 minutes later, pilots began the inflation dance. Burners rumbled like dragons clearing their throats. Propane flames licked upward, and nylon canopies heaved into life. Aurora rose tallest among them. Doyle climbed into his basket with easy showmanship, saluted the crowd, and called, "See you on the far side of sunrise," to an eruption of applause. One by one, balloons lifted. Aurora ascended last, gliding over the ridge toward a sky rinsed clean of clouds. Claire packed away her gear, savouring the peppery smell of scorched propane, until a sharp tug on her sleeve disrupted the reverie. "Ms. Hale," yelled Maxine Bell, one of the festival volunteers. "You need to see the emergency channel." They hustled to the operations tent where radios hissed. A voice rattled through static. "Repeat, Aurora has landed in Meadow 2, no occupant in basket. Founder is missing. Send medical and security." Claire's brain hiccuped. Landed empty? She pivoted to the main monitor that tracked each balloon's GPS transponder. Aurora's breadcrumb line showed a smooth eastward arc, then a polite descent icon, as if following every rule of safe flight, except the signal had gone dark 40 seconds after touchdown. No mayday, no abrupt spike or tumble, just a routine landing at the edge of Riverstone Meadow. Within 10 minutes, Claire, 2 sheriff deputies, and a paramedic truck bounced down a dirt road toward the coordinates. The balloon, half deflated, lay draped over bunchgrass like a shed reptile skin. Burner hissed in idle mode. The basket, light wicker with leather rail, was intact, no scorch marks or snapped lines. Doyle's straw hat perched on the floorboards beside a still-steaming mug of coffee. Deputy Reeves radioed HQ. "Visual confirms no pilot on site. No footprints except what look like bounce tracks from the drag." His unsaid thought hovered between them. How does a man vanish mid-air in wind this calm? Claire crouched over the hat. No tears in the weave, no sweat stains fresh enough to hint at a struggle. She scanned the meadow perimeter. No fences higher than her knee, no nearby trees, only the squat silhouette of an old fire-spotter tower a quarter-mile uphill, and the long ribbon of the Pine River shimmer-snaking beyond. A hawk circled above, mocking their confusion. Her professional reflex kicked in. What did the sky know? Back at command, festival staff erected whiteboards. Sheriff Haldeman and search and rescue supervisors plotted grid lines. Claire requested the balloon's onboard instruments, altimeter logs, burner output record, the small anemometer Doyle had mounted for fun. Data scrolled across her laptop. Altitude constant, descent rate normal, no sudden spike in vertical acceleration that would suggest Doyle had leaped or fallen. Somewhere between 1,200 and 200 feet he'd disappeared, and the basket kept flying like a polite driver whose passenger slipped out the door without a ripple. Media trucks rolled in. Rumours sprouted wilder than dandelions. A cable news anchor speculated lightning strike, though there'd been no lightning in the six-state region. A blogger claimed vortex convection columns could suck a man out like a straw. Claire shook her head. Nonsense performed loudly tended to drown careful silence, and that bothered her. She loaded archived Doppler sweeps. One odd reading pinged her curiosity. Narrow filaments of rapid downdraft, wind bullets, had flickered at 1,500 feet directly above Aurora's path. Short-lived, not severe, but strange given the overall placidity. Almost like air displaced by an object moving fast. Later that afternoon, she bumped into Gavin Rousseau, regional rep for Luminaire, the aerospace company sponsoring half the festival balloons. He wore slate slacks and a permatan, handshake practiced to the millimeter. "Terrible business," he said, eyes glassy with corporate concern. "We've offered our drones to assist the search." Claire accepted the card he slipped her. Embedded in the fancy stock was an NFC tag linking to a website previewing Luminaire's next-generation transport balloons, sleek composite gondolas for luxury tourism. She pocketed it, noticing Rousseau's gaze stick to the police perimeter longer than polite curiosity required. By sunset, search teams scoured forest, river, and every barn within a 2-mile radius. Nothing. Campfire chatter about optical illusions, mechanical failure, even alien abduction drifted across the temporary HQ. Claire leaned against her Subaru, cupping a thermos of oversteeped tea, and tried to map probabilities. She trusted the sky. Skies told the truth even when people couldn't. Something up there had snagged Edgar Doyle. To see it more clearly, she needed to go back up. Marta Ruiz, a veteran balloonist with wrists like braided rope, agreed to fly at dawn. "But we sandbag the cops," Marta muttered. "They'll strap on parachutes and stuff the basket so full of procedure we can't move." Claire promised discretion. At 5:04 a.m., their striped balloon, Nebula, lifted silently off the secondary launch pad, with only Marta's teenage grandson operating ground crew. Claire hauled up 2 aluminum cases, portable LiDAR scanner, high-res camera turret, and a boxy instrument she called the sniffer, which measured micro-changes in air temperature and particulate density. Sun painted the contour of Pine Ridge cinder domes as they climbed through the ghostly strata where Aurora had travelled. At 1,200 feet, LiDAR pinged a faint, nearly vertical line of altitudinal turbulence, narrow as a fishing line yet measurable. Temperature on one side dropped 3 degrees Celsius across a span narrower than a human body. Marta whistled. "Feels like hitting a pothole in the sky," she said, correcting the basket's lurch. Nebula rocked, shadows rippling underfoot. Claire aimed the camera turret ahead. The telephoto lens caught a quick silver glint in the otherwise spotless air, 24 yards long, strung between the derelict fire spotter tower and a cliffside pine. The glint vanished when the angle changed, reappeared when they yawed back. "What the... is that cable?" Marta asked. "Could be," Claire began before adrenaline stole the rest of her sentence. She remembered old stories of illegal zip lines stretched across canyons. A high tensile filament, thin enough to be invisible, could graze a balloon's crown seam or basket rail. In zero wind, a skilled saboteur could dangle from it like a spider drop line, board a balloon, and, her stomach lurched, remove its pilot. Nebula skirted the area wide. They landed near the base of the fire spotter tower, deflated quickly, and bushwhacked upslope. The tower's stairs had sagged, but remained climbable. Halfway up, Claire's headlamp cyclone swept the interior. A small battery array, remote control receiver, and an empty spool of carbon fiber microcable crouched beside the banister. Fresh boot prints dotted dusty boards. She photographed everything. A tuft of tangerine nylon, Aurora's envelope colour, hung on a splinter near the window. No blood, no broken planks, only evidence of a setup engineered to be quick, silent, and reversible. Downstairs, Marta pointed to tyre tracks leading northward, shallow but distinct. Claire snapped photos. Then they heard distant engines, 2 ATVs popping over rocks. They retreated into brush while headlights swept across meadow grass. Vehicles paused at the tower, engines idled. Voices muffled. "Told you no one would check until they move the search grid tomorrow." The men loaded equipment. Claire recognized one silhouette, tall, meticulous posture, Gavin Rousseau. An idea soldered itself together with angry heat. Luminaire pitched luxury balloons. Pine Ridge was a quaint but fragile stepping stone. Doyle, fiercely protective of local ecology, had publicly criticized commercial balloon overflights of raptor nesting zones. Rumor around town said he planned to withdraw Luminaire's future sponsorship, maybe announce it Monday. What better way to derail that than to remove him long enough for contracts to default? But Doyle wasn't dead, she reasoned. Rousseau would want leverage, not a body. Where would they stash an aging festival founder? Claire spent the afternoon cross-referencing Forest Service sheds, empty cabins, and disused ranger stations within an ATV's range. One match pinged her memory. Weather Station Gamma, a 1950s bunker built for hail suppression experiments, decommissioned 30 years earlier. Half a mile beyond the ridge, accessible by spur road closed to the public. She fed new coordinates to the sheriff, but Haldeman, burdened by protocol, needed warrants that would take till morning. Claire borrowed Marta's compact balloon, Fleetfoot, small as a pickup bed but nimble. She told no one, left a voicemail with Haldeman just shy of admitting her plan, and launched at civil dusk, rising along the spur road corridor. If Rousseau's men watched the road, they wouldn't scan upward against twilight's bruised purple. Wind carried Fleetfoot to 600 feet. Claire dropped ballast, hovered, and peered through binoculars. Gamma bunker squatted in a clearing of waist-high sage. A keypad door flickered green. Power. Outside, a steel I-beam stuck horizontally between 2 pines, makeshift anchor point for the cable mechanism. And leaning against the bunker's wall, half in shadow, was Aurora's basket stripped of its burners. A flood of urgency kicked into Claire's muscles. She vented hot air, sank into a slow spiral, brushing the treetop canopy until Fleetfoot nudged a pine limb. She tied a quick clove hitch around a branch, anchored the chute, and climbed down using the limb ladder nature provided, heart hammering like a spooked grouse. Crickets fizzed. Inside the bunker she heard voices. 3, 2 definitely. A door clanked. She crept to a boarded window. Through slats, she saw Edgar Doyle, wrists bound to a chair but very much alive, jaw set in bulldog defiance. Rousseau paced. Another man, stockier, taped a phone to Doyle's ear. "Just read the statement, Edgar," Rousseau coaxed. "You'll be home for the closing ceremony. Hero returned from engine trouble." Doyle spat. "My festival isn't a billboard for your damned sky yachts." Rousseau sighed, signalled stocky man, who prepped a syringe. Claire's pulse thudded. She scanned for an entry. Side vent? Too small. Roof? Maybe. She tiptoed around, found an exterior ladder, climbed to the bunker's flat top, where an old ventilation hatch sat rust-seized. A multi-tool and persistence freed it. She eased the grate aside, lowered herself inside, and dropped onto a filing cabinet that groaned but didn't topple. Voices drifted from corridor. Claire counted footsteps fade. She slipped down the hall, ducked into the main room. Doyle's chair faced away. The syringe lay on a metal table, plunger poised, unused. Rousseau and partner were in adjoining storage, rummaging for something. She hurried to Doyle, sliced duct tape with her multi-tool. His eyes widened. "Claire, I trusted your forecast," he whispered, half amused, half delirious from dehydration. "Forecast is fine," she muttered, "but humans are ugly weather." She led him down, back corridor, to an emergency exit. They burst into star-speckled night air, racing for Fleetfoot's treetop perch. Behind them, shouts erupted, then the bark of gunmetal. A bullet pinged off stone. Claire shoved Doyle up the makeshift branch ladder. Rousseau appeared at clearing edge, flashlight slicing the dark. Claire scrambled after Doyle, unknotted the hitch with fumbling fingers, burner roaring to life. Fleetfoot surged, needles of pine grazing the basket floor. Wind cooperated, steady westerly push. Rousseau fired again, muzzle flash popping like heat lightning. A hole the diameter of a coin punched Fleetfoot's sidewall. Claire prayed the ripstop held, maxed burner, and they ascended into night's velvet mouth. Her radio crackled, Sheriff Haldeman's frequency. "Claire, where the almighty hell?" "Heading northwest above Spur 4, altitude 800. Have Edgar with me, alive. Armed pursuers, ground level." Silence. Then, "Copy. I'm rerouting patrol choppers. Hold altitude and keep broadcasting your strobes." Cloud build shivered above them. Instability sniffed by her sniffer earlier now brewed into adolescent thunderheads, mammotus bellies swelling. Claire checked propane, quarter tank. Enough if the wind stayed sweet. Doyle groaned, dizzier than he admitted. "Didn't know broadcast meteorology paid so poorly you took up balloon burglary," he joked weakly. "Just repaying the favor for highlighting my 6:30 segment," she said, pulse still percussion drumming. Below, headlights crisscrossed the forest roads. Squad cars herded ATVs like collies corralling sheep. Helicopter rotors thudded into the matrix. Claire watched until blue strobes converged on bunker roofing. Relief knocked tension from her knees, and she finally allowed Fleetfoot to drift downward toward a hayfield, where EMS crews flagged a landing zone with lanterns. They touched down to applause, sirens, and a confusion of reporters. Sheriff Haldeman caught Claire by the elbow. "You might have just scripted your own felony charge," he barked, but the bark melted into a weary grin. "Hell of a rescue, though." Doyle, checked by paramedics, insisted on addressing the crowd. Wrapped in a blanket, IV dangling from an elbow, he described Rousseau's scheme: kidnap, forced contract sign-over, and a plan to rescue him later after insurance and corporate lawyers had reshuffled festival control. His voice, though hoarse, carried the iron timbre Pine Ridge elected twice. Morning sun lifted again, this time illuminating yellow police tape around Luminaire's VIP pavilion. Rousseau and his accomplice were led off in cuffs. News crews devoured the shot. Claire watched from a cooler, drinking half a gallon of water. Marta Ruiz sat beside her. "Your forecast missed one thing," Marta said. "Oh?" "That sometimes sky isn't the real danger. Sometimes the ground learns to climb up there." Claire smiled, leaned back against the cooler, and let adrenaline rinse from her bones. Helicopters chopped distant air, still hunting loose ends, but the sunrise felt honest and new. She thought about how tomorrow she'd stand in front of another camera, people wanting an explanation. She'd give them one, about cables that vanish in daylight, about greed disguised as sponsorship, and about how the atmosphere can reveal secrets if you're willing to float through suspicious skies. And she would underline, softly but clearly, that the forecast was still good, for Pine Ridge at least. Because a tiny tear in nylon, a missing mayor, and a hasty midnight flight had reminded everyone that the weather might be predictable, but humanity always adds its own turbulence.